Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
To the man who was once the most feared figure in all of hip-hop. But here he is now, Suge Knight, a former rap powerhouse, collapsing in court, where he's facing a murder charge.
The most memorable, he wrote a book, Ted Koppel wrote a book, and he talked about his most memorable moments and shit. And when that nigga came down to L.A., he was at the Athens Park, we was talking, right? Some Crips rolled up, drawing heat. So the homies started drawing heat. Koppel was right there with us. And I told Koppel, get your ass grass now, Ted. You can't nothing say. I said, you just like me, a nigga, you can die right here just like this. It's going down. So he was scared as fuck. Alright, his crew ran out on him and everything. And then niggas drew down on the Crips, and Crips was like, man, we just trying to go to our funeral, you know, the peace treaty or what? And I'm just like, yeah, it's peace. They was like, all right, it's peace. Everybody got guns with each other and they left. Koppel seen the whole thing, but he wrote about that in his book. The nigga said, I've been to Beirut, I've been to Lebanon, I've been to Somalia, he said, I've been to all the motherfucking places. He said, but I was standing in Athens Park, and them niggas got to pulling out them guns on each other. That's the scariest I ever been in my life. Because I thought I was going to die for sure. That's the closest I thought I was going to die for sure. And I looked at him, told his eye, I looked in his eye, and said, nigga, yeah, this is it right here. Anything liable to happen. Your ass is in grass right now. Because he was interviewing me with a little touch of arrogance, I thought. And when that shit happened, I was kind of glad it happened. Because it kind of shook him up. Then he was on our plan. He just right in lane.
Well, so what to do about the rise in gang violence is a question that has been asked literally for decades as the roots of gang life stretch far back. Clee Sloan knows, both as a documentary filmmaker and a member now inactive of the Bloods. His film, Bastards of the Party, traces the development of black gangs in L.A. starting back in the 1940s. It airs on HBO later this month. It is a fascinating look at gang life. He joins me now. Clee, thanks for being with us. In that piece, we just heard about the murder of Cheryl Green, a 14-year-old African-American girl allegedly killed by Latino gang members. What do you make of this growing violence between Latino gangs in African-American communities?
I mean, it's been going on for the last 10, 15 years, and it seems to me like people are really scared to call it what it actually is. If you talk about the situation in the Harbor Gateway, you know, it's ethnic cleansing, you know what I mean, because there's not a black gang in that area. It's only a Latino gang. They dominate that neighborhood. That's their neighborhood. So who is this mystery black gang that the media keeps talking about? They keep calling it a turf war, but it's not a turf war because there's not a black gang over there.
Your film really traces the roots of black gangs in Los Angeles and how they emerged first as a response to racism, later black power movements. Now the violence, though, does seem to be getting worse. How do you stop it?
You know, like I think most of the youngsters are coming up, they don't know the real how blacks and Latinos used to be unified, you know, back in the 60s and the 70s. You know, they strive for pretty much the same things. Now we got this whole new breed of youngsters who don't even know the history between blacks and Latinos. So I think what people are going to have to do is try to teach the youngsters exactly how we used to be together, how we used to be kind of like fighting for the same thing. Now we're fighting each other for crumbs.
And so knowledge of history, you think, will help?
Yeah, I think it will help. I think it will help because if you take Bastards of the Party, once we broke down the history of what we were doing to each other and how we came to this blood on Crip war, you know, it was the conditions before us that brought us here. You know, I mean, the stage was set way before we got here. Like I say, this has been going on since 1969. It's longer than any American conflict. You know what I mean? And it's been going on year after year after year. We had a little break in '92. That's about it. So I think the history. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I don't want to interrupt, but I mean, how do you stop young kids, you know, with little money, little hope, who see gang members controlling their streets and who hear, you know, rappers and these big corporations basically pushing a thug lifestyle in movies and music. It's a strong message, and it's surrounding them. How do you say that's not who we are?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough because they're bombarded with all these images through BET, MTV, and so on. And, you know, and all these kids, they want to be gangsters. They want to be recognized. And I always say the most easiest way for a kid to get overnight sensation is to join a gang. If he joins a gang, everybody's going to be talking about it. His mom, his friends, his sister, and everybody's going to be saying, you know, such and such joined the gang. So I think that's one of the fastest way for a kid to get some attention is to join a gang. But the sad part about it is that, you know, his lifespan, he's cutting his life in half because he's definitely going to be hurt, maimed, or even, you know, locked up or killed.
And the gangs that I've spent time with, every one of the people I've talked to who have been in a long time, they all say the same thing. They got in because of this bond that allegedly existed, and with their brothers or their sisters in the gang. But that over the years, they kind of came to see that was just kind of a lie, that, you know, they ultimately were they end up on their own.
I mean, it is an individual. You do end up on your own as an individual. When you're doing time, you do time by yourself. You know what I mean? Your gang, your homies don't do time with you, but, you know, you do time by yourself. So in a sense, that's true. But however, if you look up the roots of this whole thing, it came about, you know what I'm saying, based on a defense mechanism, based on some honor, based on some solidarity. And yeah, in these later years, all that stuff has been broken down. You know what I mean? It used to be, you know, me and my boys against the world, me and my homies against the world. You know what I mean? And so that's the tagline that we kind of embrace. That's the tagline that we kind of try to push. But as what you said is true. Lately, it's the honor and some of the original concept is definitely being lost. It's definitely being morphed into something else.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned BET and MTV, and you know, when you look at these videos and you hear the music, and I don't want to sound like some old fogey who's like, "Oh, rap music is bad," but right. the stuff that's being marketed to these kids is so against everything that will help them succeed. And it's not just being marketed by, you know, some guy in his garage who's rapping. These are major corporations making, you know, millions and millions of dollars by basically sending a message to kids that's destroying them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, because I think, you know, hip-hop and rap was a joke at first. You know what I mean? And it was like the little engine that could, and it got bigger and it got bigger. And then, you know, corporate America got its hands on it, and that's when it really, really became terrible and more dirty than ever. You know, we've always had, you know, it used to be a balance. You had, you know, NWA, but then you had maybe say you know, a good rap group. There's always used to be some balance, but now it seems like it's all, you know, it's all geared towards women. It's all geared towards materialism, and that's definitely not what hip hop started out to be. But I think as the corporations got more involved and started controlling it, you know what I mean? Because we really don't control it. The rappers don't control it. We don't have, you know, we don't distribute it. So I think it's the big corporations that's really been journeying up and doing it a disservice in the last, you know, 5 to 10 years.
The movie is Bastards of the Party. I looked at it, I watched it all earlier today. It's a fascinating look at the history of gangs. Clee and Sloan, appreciate you coming in and talking.
Going down the street and looting the market or something like that, you know? What you talking about, Mom?
When he says blacks come together, it's not just, you know, that's not the only place we're divided. That's just one small fragment of it. You got Crips, you got the Bloods, you got the Muslims, you got the Christians, you got the black on black crime, you got the bourgeois blacks, you got the lower class blacks. You know, we as a people, we're divided in many different elements. You know, not only the Crips and Bloods. The only thing people focus on the Crips and Bloods so hard is because of the death toll. You know what I'm saying? Like the West Bank and the West Bank and Israel. You know what I'm saying? The same way, the death toll.
Yeah, you know what? They always want to shine a spotlight on us when there's a drive-by shooting and an innocent victim has been hurt. But what about that? What about that flyby that the United States just did on Iraq?
And killed 500 babies off top.
We can't excuse anything that happens anywhere, anytime, anyhow, if
we're going to point to what governments do and say, well, if governments do that, that makes anything that anybody else does.
I never said it made right. No,
but let's not use that as an argument right now. What I'm trying to say is, what's it going to take to get this community straight? What's it going to, and when I talk about this community, I don't mean this little community right here. I mean Los Angeles, white, black, Korean, Hispanic.
Okay. You got people who've been working 10, 15 years out of jobs now, and now they're right down here in the same so-called melting pot or the same boat with us, and so everybody has animosity towards everybody. Now some of the people who never wanted to go to our school systems are going to the same school systems with our children, and now we got all different cultures right here on the bottom. They say LA is such a diverse and multicultural community, in which it is, but the communication broke down because you got your Koreans feeling they're better than the blacks, you got the Latinos feeling they're better than the Mayatas, you know, but we've been here on the bottom for the longest. Now they're dropping a little bit of everybody in here, and this is where the problems are starting to come, you know, and now it's not just a black-white thing. You know, when somebody say that, now it's a rich poor thing.
Let me ask you a very provocative question. This may make you all angry when I ask you the question, but before the Koreans, it was the Jews, right, who used to own the stores, and you were just as angry at the Jews as you are now against the Koreans. And if the Koreans ever pull out, then it'll be the Laotians or the Cambodians or the Vietnamese or someone will move in. Why is it that black people can't run those stores and make money? Go ahead.
When you get a foreigner that can come to this country and step to a bank and get $20,000 with no problem, they can open a business any way they want to. You see what I'm saying? But now here I am, I can't even get a bank account. Born and raised in America.
It's too easy to say they can just walk into a bank and get a $20,000 loan. You know, banks don't give out loans like that unless there's some kind, unless they got something. Collateral, exactly.
The collateral they get, like you said, you got your grandfathers, you got your fathers, you got all these generations who had something, you know, maybe not a lot. Maybe that second generation of grandfather had a piece of property and he passed it down. But our forefathers ain't never had pieces of property. They always been renters.
The only thing that we can pass on is the fact that
there you go.
My father may have been a criminal because he had to feed his family and couldn't get a job. And then he became a criminal because he had to break in or rob and steal and do what he had to do to feed his family. He got that to hand down to me. So now I got that to hand down to my son.
Let me ask you a question. You got children?
Yes.
I was talking to Little Monster before. I mean, we said it on camera, so I hope you won't be offended if I say to these men here. And I said to him that I was sure if I asked him if he was afraid of getting killed, he'd say he's not afraid. But if I put the question differently and say, how do you feel about your little boy? That's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
You know, that's my jewels. That's really all I got. You know, that's what brightens up my life. You know, their innocence, just their, you know, the way they feel about me. Of course, I mean,
as you all over
any
again.
Human being. You know, you can lose a child in a car accident, you're gonna feel the same way. You know, of course, I don't want my daughters. I got daughters, or I'm sure he doesn't want his son to walk into his footsteps. You know, I'm not trying to raise my sons or daughter as a bad gangster. Right. You know, they don't even know. All they know me by is daddy, not Bone, not no gangster or nothing. They don't know none of that. So when they look at me, they see daddy, the provider. You know what I'm saying? I love them, they love me back.
So what is it that's going to change things for your little girl?
First of all, my little girls don't even stay in this community. First of all, so that part is covered.
Why?
Why? Because they don't live in this community.
Why not?
Because I'd rather have them live elsewhere.
Why?
The same reason you don't want to live here.
Safe zone.
The same reason.
I want you to say it. I mean, you know, let's be honest with you. You're afraid for them, right?
Yeah. I'm afraid not only for them, for anybody's kids. Not only for my kids.
If you can, do that, because this is such a common sight in our community. This is such a common sight of criminal possession.
And those are Crips right
there.
Yeah, they are.
235.
See, Ted, now you're in jeopardy right now. You don't even know it. One of them cars can easily pull up and say, oh, they're going to park boys right here. And they can come right here with an AK-47, and you are in jeopardy. Right now, you are in jeopardy.
As you can see, person right there throwing up signs.
You see him throwing up signs? You see him throwing up signs at us?
That's one of the reasons why we don't want our kids around here.
This is what he's talking about. I'm gonna show you something else you didn't see. You see Freddie Cole gone. You know why?
Why?
Because he's gonna try to protect us. He's got some stashed around here. So if they try to do what they might do,
they're gonna get killed.
He's gonna try to, you know what I'm saying, protect us.
No, there was a California highway patrolman.
No, that wasn't a highway patrolman.
No, that
was a funeral guard.
Funeral guard. Yeah. So he's not caring.
Oh, no, he ain't got no gun. Yeah. Now, and that was
his job is to stop traffic.
That was a very, 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 very small funeral. And there's been times when funerals come by here,
not been loved.
And 2 or 3 cars pull here and they shooting. The homies shoot back, and they went right down Broad, right there. Really, that was disrespect to us right there. That's it. You know, but really, they having a funeral. Maybe if they wouldn't fly in their colors, it wouldn't have been disrespect. You see, they had them on the antenna, so they wanted us to know. They didn't come by here just by accident. They could have took Maine. They could have took any other street they wanted. Yeah. You know, but they came right past Athens Park. You know.
All right. Now, do you understand how someone like me, who hasn't grown up here,
yeah, I understand that,
thinks that's just crazy?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's not bad enough that whoever that young man is died. Now someone else has got to die.
See, but I'm gonna tell you something. The death of a loved one will motivate you to kill.
Look, there's nothing new in all of this, right? This is as old as human beings, right? What I'm trying to get to here is, throughout history, nations have stayed at war or have gone to war every 30, 40, 50 years because they're not able to do what you say you're not able to do. They're not able to forget.
They're dead.
They're not able to forget they're dead.
I can tell you what will make people forget they're dead. And it's very simple. We've just seen it for the last 3 days. Common ground. Now, for the last 3 days, we ain't been tripping off our dead homeboys. They ain't been tripping off their dead homeboys. We tripping off these police.
But the fact of the matter is, the cops out there, in the long run, wait, let me finish. They're going to outgun you. Either they're going to outgun you on their own, or the National Guard's going to come in, the Marines come in, the 1st Airborne comes in, whoever the hell it is that comes in, and sooner or later, we're going to have nothing but funerals going through here.
All right. But you know what? Let me tell you something, though. Sometimes it's an honor to die fighting against established. I'll give you a case in point. I watched those little youngsters on the Gaza strips throw rocks at the Israels while the Israelites just shoot them down with guns. I watched them arm themselves with rocks. And they die with honor. You know what I'm saying? I heard some of the homeboys say, if I go out, man, this is the way I want to go out, trying to get me one of them.
But let me tell you the difference between a leader and a real leader. The easy answer right now is to get everybody angry against the police, is to get everybody angry against the establishment. The more difficult answer, the more difficult form of leadership is to be able to say, that's not an answer. We've got to get beyond that. Because when the killing's over, we're still going to have to put, we're going to have to clean up. We're going to have to rebuild these buildings. We're going to have to start businesses again. We're going to have to find homes again. We don't want our children to be killed. We want them to have an education. We want their lives to be better than our lives were, right? Am I right?
Right, and it's going to happen.
How?
And it's going to happen because the bottom is going to come to the top, and the top's going to go to the bottom. So what we feeling today, you might feel tomorrow.
Let me say this, Ted.
Maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe not my kid's lifetime.
Y'all ever seen a situation where a person wielded so much force that they were referred to as the muscle? Now, if you're trying to shoot a motion picture or maybe even a big music video in the city of Los Angeles, specifically Inglewood, just like Will Smith would do for his Netflix movie Bright, as well as Dr. Dre for Straight Outta Compton, I suggest you check in with Bone. Athens Park, what up? It's Shades Popalot. We in the town. We talking about one of your own. Salute the almighty mob. Now, today I'm going to do my absolute best to tell you guys the story of Clee Bone Sloan, a person that would go from gangbanging in the Athens Park neighborhood to being an influential figure in the 1992 gang truce during the LA riots, who would go on to be a renowned movie director, as well as being the influential figure that would be involved in the incident that would end with former Death Row CEO Suge Knight being sentenced to prison for essentially the rest of his life. Clee's life will begin in South Central Los Angeles when the Bloods and the Crips, the two gangs that would grow to dominate Los Angeles, were in their infancy stages. And he would have a first-hand view of how the two groups would go from some boys protected in their neighborhoods to the two groups that would dominate LA for decades to come. In an interview, he would explain how he would join the Athens Park Bloods, or APB, at a very young age, sounding like elementary school or junior high school, when he would explain a situation where they would have a run-in with the Raymond Street Crips. In that interview, he would explain how the group he was with would beat that group of Raymond Street Crips until the Crips would retreat to their cars coming back with guns, leading to multiple people that he was with being shot. He wouldn't explain it to it being a situation where people lost their lives, but he did say that that would be the point that would turn him from fighting to the gunplay. Now, if you survived being an active gangbanger during the 1990s in Los Angeles, you are one of them ones, because it was a turbulent time in the city that was highlighted with a wave of violence and fatalities that would stem from conflicts between different rival gangs, notably the Bloods and the Crips. Now, the statistics were very, very grim for that time, but by all accounts, hundreds and hundreds of people would lose their lives in gang-related homicides between just the years of 1990 and 2000, with the conclusion being that it was a time when the city streets were marked by territorial disputes and danger lurked around almost every corner. And it would be in this backdrop of violence that Bone would go on to make his name. During the 1992 gang truce and LA riots would be Bone's probably most defining moments. In the aftermath of the Rodney King verdict and the subsequent riots, Bone, along with other influential figures from rival gangs, would play a pivotal role in brokering a temporary ceasefire between the groups. From what I gathered, depending where you lived at determined how long the truce lasted, but the truce did give a little bit of hope during a rough time in the city, and Bone's involvement in that would show his somewhat determination to bridge the gaps in between the two groups, working towards a more peaceful coexistence. His first journey into the entertainment industry would come in the late 1990s, early 2000, when he would showcase his talents for acting in the television series South Central. But it would be in the year 2001 when his career would take a significant turn, when he would portray a gripping character in the critically acclaimed movie Training Day. In a situation where art imitated life, Clee Sloan would take on the role of Bone, a member of a street gang. He would go on to direct an in-depth documentary titled Bastards of the Party, where he would pretty much break down the history of gangbanging, with it covering when the gangs would begin forming in the 1960s, going through the most violent times, the 1990s through the 2000s. But Bone's relevance extends far beyond just acting and historical events in the city. He has become a key figure in providing protection services for entertainers and film crews during shoots in certain areas of Los Angeles. And just like Will Smith for his movie Bright and Dr. Dre somewhat for Straight Outta Compton, a lot of companies would seek out Bone's services in filming such projects. Now, it would be his understanding of the street dynamics and his ability to navigate complex situations that would make him invaluable to certain people that seek him to film in areas that will present certain unique challenges, if you understand. And it's not just for physical security, but probably even more for his guidance and understanding and respecting the neighborhoods that these crews are filming in, where just like on the set of Straight Outta Compton, his presence would ensure a safer environment for both the cast and the crew, while building a positive relationship and some dialogue between the local community. And that would be part of the big issue that would erupt with him and Suge on the set of Straight Outta Compton, with a lot of people saying that Bone had been reaching out to Dr. Dre in a sense to try to pull him in to be part of the historical movie about the group NWA. Now, depending where you look online, it would be referenced that Bone and Suge had some kind of long-standing feud that will result in the death of 55-year-old filmmaker Terry Carter on February 4th, 2015. and would leave Bone injured. Now, depending on who you ask, they would have different accounts of the situation. Some people saying that Suge was called up to the set. Some people pointing it out that Suge was probably trying to go to bogart the situation. But however it might have played out, it would result with 55-year-old Terry Carter, who is actually a friend of Suge Knight, being ran over and killed by Suge, leading to Suge Knight agreeing to serve 26 years in prison. After his initial arrest, Suge Knight would paint the situation as where he would pull up in his red truck and he was immediately assaulted by Bone while he was in the vehicle. His lawyer would explain that with him being in a situation with 3 known gangbangers, he was in fear for his life and just wanted to get out as soon as possible, with driving forward being the easiest way out. In the video that has been circulated online of the February 2015 incident, you would pretty much see Suge gun the truck, running Terry Carter over. A press release would go out saying that Bone wasn't going to testify against Suge, but with authorities having the whole crime on tape, they didn't need much in order to convict the former head of Death Row. Now, if any of y'all have any plans of shooting a movie in Los Angeles, but don't have any connections, I certainly advise you to check in with Bone. Y'all make sure y'all hit that red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real Trill Spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box below. Y'all run it up. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what I got wrong, all of that. Y'all tap in directly, Instagram, Twitter, POP_8_LOT. Until next time, y'all know the